I still remember the day I heard the news. September 2nd, 2019. Elkton Road was quiet like always, heat rising off the asphalt, kids getting ready to head back to school after Labor Day weekend. Nothing out of the ordinary, at least not yet. We're a small town. Elkton blends right into Elkmont if you're not paying attention. Out here in Limestone County, people know your name, your truck, and where you go to church. That's why what happened didn't just shock us. It tore something out of this place we'll probably never get back. The boy's name was Mason Sisk, 14 years old. Quiet. Real quiet. He'd walk past my house some mornings on his way to school, backpack slung over one shoulder, hoodie even in the heat. Give a little nod if you caught his eye, but that was about it. Never caused trouble in the neighborhood. Didn't smoke, didn't hang out late. Most folks thought he was just shy. His dad, John Sisk, worked maintenance at a trucking yard over in Athens. Solid guy, always helping out during the town's summer cleanups. His wife Mary, well, technically Mason's stepmom, taught at the special needs school. Kind woman. You never saw her without a soft voice or a patient smile. She treated that boy like her own flesh and blood. I never once heard her call him Step anything. They had 3 little ones too, younger than Mason by a good few years. Sometimes I'd see the whole bunch of them packed into that red SUV, heading to the Piggly Wiggly or church events. They looked like a normal, decent family. Maybe not picture perfect, but who is? But now, knowing what I know, I keep going back, trying to see the cracks. The things I missed. There were little signs, I guess. Mason stopped showing up to youth group around May. Teachers said he'd been getting more withdrawn at school. One kid swore he saw him throw a dead squirrel at the dumpster behind the gym, but people brushed it off as just weird teenage behavior. Lord knows middle school's rough for everyone. Still, there was something in his eyes those last few months. I saw him once just standing at the edge of the woods by the highway, staring. Not doing anything, not even moving, just watching the trees like he was waiting on something. It creeped me out. But I didn't say anything. What would I have said? Everything changed when they came back from that weekend trip. I don't know where they went, maybe just to Huntsville or visiting relatives. Doesn't matter now. All I know is that early Monday morning, I was having coffee on my porch when I saw the blue lights. Cop cars flying down our road like lightning struck somewhere. Within an hour, the entire street was blocked off. Tape went up. People started whispering. And then, the truth started leaking out, piece by piece. That boy had made a phone call, and what he said was going to shake us all. The 911 call came in a little after 11 p.m. Sunday night, though none of us knew about it until the next morning. Mason was the one who made it. His voice was calm, too calm, if you ask me, and he told the dispatcher that there'd been a shooting. That's all he said. When the deputies arrived at the Sisk home, the front door was cracked open. No forced entry. No sign of a struggle. Just silence. They found Mason outside. He wasn't crying, wasn't panicked. Said he'd gone for a walk after the argument and came home to find his family shot. Said he didn't see who did it. At first, the officers weren't sure what to make of him. 14-year-olds don't usually commit mass murder, especially not here. But nothing about the scene made sense. No broken windows. No sign of anyone coming in or out. The only person in that house still breathing was Mason. I remember standing behind the caution tape the next morning, coffee still in hand, barely registering what I was seeing. Neighbors gathered, all whispering the same question. What the hell happened in there? A deputy, I know, won't name him here, came over, face pale, hands shaking. I'd never seen him like that. All he said was, they're all gone. John, Mary, the 3 little ones, all shot in their beds. No noise. No calls for help. Just stillness. Like the house had gone to sleep and never woke up. And Mason? He sat in the back of the cruiser, hands cuffed in front of him, staring out the window like he was watching clouds. Not crying. Not angry. Just blank. Rumors started flying fast. Some said it was a robbery gone wrong. Others thought maybe John had done it and Mason was the lone survivor. People didn't want to believe the alternative, that a kid, one of our own, could have done something so brutal. But the detectives weren't stupid. The evidence pointed one way, and one way only. The murder weapon, a 9mm handgun, was found tucked away inside the house. Registered to John. No prints but Mason's. No sign of a break-in, no forced doors, no footprints that didn't match the people who lived there. By Monday night, Mason wasn't a witness anymore. He was a suspect, and the pieces started falling into place. Looking back now, It's like everything had been hiding in plain sight. When Mason was first taken into custody, people still gave him the benefit of the doubt. Some said he must have snapped. Others blamed video games or medication, or said maybe he was being bullied. Small towns love their excuses. It's easier than facing something that doesn't fit into the neat boxes we live in. But the investigation dug deeper, and what they found didn't feel like a snap. It felt like something that had been building for a long time. They say Mason had known for a while that Mary wasn't his biological mother. He just didn't say anything. John had married her when Mason was still small after his real mother died. Cancer, I think. At the time, Mary seemed like a godsend. She stepped in, raised him like her own. There were photos of them together, all smiles at school plays and church functions. You'd never guess there was resentment simmering underneath. But that's the thing about anger in kids, it doesn't always come out screaming. Sometimes it hides behind silence, behind those blank stares. Sometimes it waits. In the weeks leading up to the killings, Mason had started acting different. Teachers noticed he was restless. He'd snap over little things. Stop turning in homework. He once got sent home for drawing something violent in class. No one said what, exactly, but the principal called it disturbing. There was even a rumor, never confirmed, that he'd killed a neighbor's cat and left it by the mailbox. Folks dismissed it as gossip. We wanted to believe he was just a troubled teen, not dangerous. Turns out, Mary had recently confronted him about something serious. No one knows exactly what was said, but the tension in that house had started to boil. Some family friends said he'd grown cold toward the little kids. Barely talked to them. Shut himself in his room for hours. He'd been spending a lot of time online. Nobody knew where or doing what. And maybe the scariest part? There were no screams. No broken furniture. No signs of a fight. The police said it looked like the victims were killed while they slept. One by one. Calm. Methodical. The idea that a 14-year-old boy could walk from room to room and do that, without hesitation, without mercy, it chilled people to their bones. Especially those of us who thought we knew him. I used to think monsters looked like something you'd recognize. Something you'd spot before it was too late. But Mason? He just looked like a regular kid. The town didn't know what to do with itself in the days after the news broke. Schools closed for a day. The church put up a memorial. People started bringing candles, teddy bears, handwritten notes. Someone left a photo of the 3 little kids, laminated and tucked into the chain-link fence outside the house. But the house stayed quiet. Police tape fluttered in the wind. No one dared walk too close. Meanwhile, Mason was held at the county facility. Since he was underage, there were all sorts of legal complications, whether to try him as an adult, whether he understood what he'd done. His face wasn't released to the press at first, but we all knew what he looked like. You don't forget the kid who used to sit behind you in youth group or ride past your house on a bike. I kept thinking about something I'd seen a few weeks earlier. Mason was sitting alone on the curb outside the gas station, knees pulled up, staring at the ground like he was somewhere else. I'd asked him if he was all right. He just said, "I'm fine," without looking up. There was no warmth in his voice. No anger either. Just nothing. The more that came out in the investigation, the less we understood. Detectives found a notebook in his room. They never released the whole thing, but parts of it leaked eventually, notes about feeling lied to, drawings that didn't make sense, lists of things that needed to go. People said it looked like something out of a horror film, but I think they gave it too much drama. The scariest part was how normal the handwriting was. Just regular teenage scrawl, like he was making a grocery list. And then, there was the detail that sat with me more than anything else. Mason didn't just shoot them. He waited until everyone was asleep. His father, Mary, the kids. He walked through that house in the dark and pulled the trigger 5 separate times. The police said he then hid the gun, left the house for a bit, and came back later, trying to make it look like someone else had done it. But he didn't run. He didn't panic. He called the police himself. Some said it was a cry for help. Others said he didn't feel a thing. Whatever the truth is, he never cried. Never asked for forgiveness. Never showed fear. And that's what scared us more than anything else. By the time Mason's trial began, he was 17. Taller. Leaner. Still had that same blank expression, like he was sitting through a movie he'd already seen. The courtroom was packed. People from town came just to watch. Some brought photos of John and Mary, of the little kids, like they needed to remind the judge this wasn't just a case. It was a scar that never stopped burning. The prosecution laid everything out in cold detail. The recovered gun, the absence of forced entry, the sleeping victims, the notebook, the 911 call. Piece by piece, they built the timeline of a boy who didn't just lose control, he planned this. Then came the part none of us saw coming. In one of the interviews after his arrest, one that hadn't been released to the public, Mason had said it wasn't the fights or the house rules or school pressure that pushed him over the edge. It was the moment he realized Mary wasn't his real mother. I just felt like my whole life was fake, he told them. Like none of it was ever mine. He said it so flatly that it made my skin crawl when the recording was played. There it was, the trigger. Not a shouted argument or years of abuse. Just a quiet, terrible realization. And for reasons no one will ever fully understand, that was enough for Mason to make a decision no child should ever even consider. The defense tried to argue mental illness. They said he had trauma, disassociation, maybe some undiagnosed disorder. But the jury didn't see a confused boy. They saw a teenager who chose to destroy his entire family while they slept. It didn't take long. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. And then the sentence, life in prison. No chance of parole. The room didn't cheer. It didn't feel like justice. It felt like a second funeral, quieter, but just as heavy. It's been years now since that night. Mason is 20, serving a life sentence in a facility far from here. We don't talk about him much anymore, not in public, at least. But his shadow is still here, stitched into the walls of that empty house, into the faces of people who knew the Sisk family before everything fell apart. The house stood vacant for a while, wrapped in silence and ivy. No one wanted to live there. Eventually, the bank took it. Some investors came through, remodeled it, painted the walls, tried to turn it into something new. But I still drive by sometimes. And every time, I see it exactly as it was. Lights off, police tape flapping in the wind, a cruiser idling in the driveway. Mary's sister moved away not long after the sentencing. Said she couldn't walk through the grocery store without seeing someone look away from her. Like the whole town carried this low-level shame, not because of what happened, but because none of us saw it coming. And maybe that's what haunts me most. There were signs, sure, but we ignored them. We told ourselves it was just teen mood swings, just a rough patch. We didn't want to believe a kid could carry something so dark inside him. Not someone we knew, not someone from here. Sometimes I think about the younger kids, the ones who never made it to middle school, who never had a chance to grow up. Their names show up in yearbooks now in the in memory section. Their old classrooms have new students, new teachers, new stories. But none of that erases what happened. As for Mason, the last report I saw said he still hadn't shown remorse. He doesn't write letters, doesn't ask about funerals, doesn't seem to care that his entire bloodline ended that night by his own hand. I used to want to understand why he did it. What was going through his head? What he thought he'd gain by pulling that trigger 5 times in the dark. Now, I've accepted that there are some things you don't get to understand. You just learn to live with them. And you never, ever forget.